My girlfriend dumped me because her best friend decided I was a walking red flag. I just said, all right. Fast forward a few weeks, and that same friend slid into my DMs saying, you deserve better. And now, Axe is full of regret for ever listening to her. Buckle up. Reddit, this one's a ride. I'm 27, a systems analyst based in Seattle, working a stable job at a mid-sized tech firm. It's not glamorous, but the pay's solid. The benefits are decent, and I've got enough to live comfortably. Before I met Elena, 26, and a total extrovert, I was your typical low-key tech dude. My life was basically work, gym, gaming, and the occasional hangout with my crew. Nothing wild. I moved into my own place at 24 after slogging through 3 brutal years of IT support hell. The kind where you spend your day walking middle-aged execs through why clicking on suspicious links isn't just a bad idea, it's the bad idea. The apartment wasn't fancy, but it was mine, and no one questioned why I had a second monitor just for Discord. I had a sweet setup. Triple screen gaming rig, a sound system my neighbors definitely didn't sign up for, and a growing collection of mechanical keyboards. Yeah, I'm that guy. The one who argues online about the superiority of Cherry MX Blues versus Browns like it's a matter of national importance. My custom-built PC, an absolute beast. RTX 3080, 32 GB RAM, overclocked. i9, the kind of machine NASA might borrow if they wanted to launch something on a budget. Took months of overtime and dealing with clueless execs trying to VPN from beach houses to fund it. It sat on a desk I built from an old door and scrap metal I found online. Shout out to DIY YouTube. At the time, my game of choice was an MMO called Ashen Veil. I was deep in it, thousands of hours. Top tier rating guild. The whole deal. I ran with a guy named Kevin, 28, from Portland. He was a network engineer and my online brother from another server. Never met in person, but we'd been playing together for 7 years. Guy could tank bosses and dish out relationship advice in the same breath, and weirdly, he was good at both. I met Elena at a friend's housewarming party about 5 years ago. She was the type who lights up her room. Somehow found my awkward humor charming, which still baffles me. She was everything I wasn't: effortlessly social, always looked put together, even in hoodies and messy buns. Loved farmers markets and could strike up a convo with your Uber driver and end up best friends. We clicked different enough to keep it interesting, similar enough to make it work. Things were great the first couple of years. After 18 months, we moved in together, adopted a rescue pup, an 85 lb German Shepherd mix named Rocket, and settled into a cozy rhythm. Rocket was pure chaos in a fursuit, but he was my buddy and a total chick magnet. Looking back, I missed the early warning signs. Elena, constantly glued to her phone, needing validation for even the smallest choices. Ordering pizza, gotta check with 3 group chats first. Planning a weekend getaway, not without a full committee vote. I should have paid attention. But when you're in it, you don't always see the cracks. So during the honeymoon phase of our relationship, everything was pretty smooth. Until Tara started becoming a regular presence. Elena's best friend since high school, 5'3", of non-stop commentary, and neon green hair that looked like it had been dyed in a swamp. And she changed the color constantly. Like the issue was the shade, not the fact she looked like a failed Joker cosplay. She called it her signature vibe, but honestly, it gave menace to emotional stability. Elena and Tara were inseparable, the type of friendship where they knew each other, each passwords, and probably shared a single brain cell when it came to decisions. At first, I thought it was sweet. Close friendships are important, right? But Tara, she gave me this vibe. Not openly rude, just cold. Like she already decided I was a placeholder and she was the real constant in Elena's life. She was chronically single, but somehow self-appointed herself the relationship expert. Every time I was around, I felt like a lab rat under her microscope. She'd interrupt me mid-sentence to talk to Elena about something completely off topic, like I was just background noise. Slowly, her presence started reshaping our relationship. Plans canceled, last minute because Tara needs me, or dinner choices overridden because Tara said this place was better. Then came the unannounced visits, emergencies, that were basically boredom, or her latest Tinder meltdown. I'll never forget the night I got last-minute VIP passes to a gaming convention I'd been dying to attend. I told Elena, she seemed into it. 2 hours before we're supposed to go, Tara calls sobbing because some guy ghosted her. Next thing I know, I'm headed to the con solo while Elena's curled up on the couch watching The Notebook and eating cookie dough with her bestie. And as if that wasn't enough, Elena kept texting me the whole time asking for updates about the event while sending selfies of her and Tara having their girls' night. Like, are you keeping tabs on me or just rubbing in how little you care about the thing I was excited for? Honestly, I met some cool folks and had a solid time without needing to explain every game reference. But it marked the start of a pattern. By year 3, things escalated. Tara had a nasty breakup. Her boyfriend finally peaced out after 2 years of playing second string to her obsession with Elena. Can't blame him. From that point on, Tara wasn't just annoying, she was practically living in our relationship. Even my buddy Bobby, who was usually pretty chill, called it out. After Tara crashed our 3rd date night in a month, he pulled me aside and said, "Dude, you realize she's trying to sabotage your relationship, right?" I laughed it off then, but Bobby wasn't wrong. Around the same time, I became friends with this guy Marcus at my gym. Built like a brick wall, worked as a physical therapist during the week, and did amateur MMA on weekends. We'd met when I almost died under a bench press, and he literally saved me from both humiliation and a hospital visit. From then on, we trained together and occasionally gamed on weekends. Elena never liked Marcus. I think it's because he had this no-nonsense attitude that made it hard for Tara's usual antics to slide. He'd say the kind of stuff everyone thinks but never says. Like the time Tara randomly appeared at our backyard BBQ, which she wasn't invited to, and Marcus just looked at her and said, "Don't you have your own friends to bother?" Elena was horrified. I, on the other hand, nearly applauded, nearly choked on my burger trying to keep a straight face. After that little scene, Tara made it a point to only drop by when she was sure Marcus wouldn't be around. She knew better. Then came the camping trip that never was. Elena and I had planned a weekend getaway, just the two of us and Rocket, off-grid in the mountains. No cell service, just stars and silence. I'd done the whole prep, researched the perfect spot, bought a new tent, even splurged on those surprisingly tasty freeze-dried meals. I was actually excited. Then, the night before we were set to leave, Tara called with some emergency work issue that, for some reason, absolutely needed Elena's help despite them being in completely unrelated careers. Long story short, trip canceled. I spent that weekend on my couch watching Instagram stories of the two of them at some rooftop lounge, cocktails in hand. Meanwhile, our untouched camping gear just sat by the front door like a sad punchline. What stung wasn't just the cancellation, it was how Elena brushed it off like it didn't matter. She got home Sunday night and handed me a souvenir keychain, like that would patch things up. "Cool, thanks for the trinket from the bar you ditched me for." Then Tara started doing something new, relationship check-ins. As I sarcastically started calling them in my head, she'd lob these subtle but loaded questions at Elena whenever I wasn't around. "Do you feel supported in your career? Or isn't it kind of odd how much time he spends gaming?" Just little seeds. And instead of swatting them away, Elena started bringing them home. Overnight, my hobbies became character flaws. The gaming setup she once thought was cool, now it was immature. My stable job with a decent salary, suddenly not ambitious enough. Friendly chats with female coworkers, suspicious. The same woman who used to beam about the website I built for her classroom now acted like I lacked drive. What hurt most was the selective memory, like how she forgot I pushed her to enroll in that teaching certificate program, or how I'd take Rocket out early on weekends so she could sleep in, or how I'd hung those picture frames and kept her houseplants alive. None of it seemed to matter anymore, not next to whatever fantasy standard Tara had convinced her she was settling below. I tried to bring it up, gently, tried to point out how much sway Tara seemed to have over her opinions. But Elena got defensive fast. She just wants the best for me. Or worse, you're being paranoid. I started feeling like I was being gaslit in my own apartment. Eventually, I started keeping track, just mentally, of how her mood or take on things changed after she'd spent time with Tara. It was all too consistent. One night, I looked around at everything we'd built. The dog sleeping by my feet. The apartment filled with shared memories. Even the IKEA plants I somehow kept alive. And I thought, when did I become an extra in my own relationship? That night, I logged into Ashen Vale and jumped into a raid with Kevin and the guild. I didn't vent, just needed to focus on something that made sense for a while. 6 grueling hours later, we finally downed this beast of a raid boss. It was past 3 a.m., and while we were sorting loot, Kevin caught on that I was off. "Rough day?" he asked. I gave him the speedrun summary while we queued up a casual dungeon. After a pause, he goes, "Sounds like your relationship's got a third player using cheat codes." And you know what? He wasn't wrong. I'd spent 3 years playing a game that was rigged from the start. Kevin told me I needed to set boundaries, but we both knew that's easier to say over Discord than to live out loud. A few days later, during lunch, my coworker Donna Sharp as ever picked up on the fact that something was bothering me. Diane was the kind of woman who looked like she'd hacked the Pentagon for fun and then gone to a punk concert after. Senior security analyst, ex-government gig, wore vintage band tees like armor. I never usually open up about relationship stuff, especially to someone at work, but Diane felt more like a no-nonsense older sister than a colleague. I figured if anyone could cut through the noise, it'd be her. So I laid it out. Elena, Tara, the subtle shifts, the weird power dynamic. Diane didn't even flinch, just leaned back in her chair and said, classic triangulation." Apparently, Tara's tactics were straight out of the manipulation playbook: create tension, insert herself as the fix, keep everyone off balance. She's destabilizing your relationship and anchoring herself as the constant. Diane said, like she was explaining a phishing scam. "Track the pattern," she advised. "Watch, record, see it for what it is. Data doesn't lie." And that advice? It stuck. Then came the final straw. I'd been grinding through a monster of a project, 14-hour days. No breaks, living off caffeine and instant noodles. Eventually, my body hit the wall. Thursday morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been body slammed by the flu. Fever spiking at 102. Couldn't hold down food. Could barely make it to the bathroom without clinging to the walls like a zombie. I don't usually ask for help, even when I should, but this time, I caved. Elena and Tara had a weekend wine trip planned with another friend, Jen, something they'd been hyped about for weeks. I asked Elena, as gently as I could, if she might delay the trip by a day, just until I could keep Gatorade down without seeing God. At first, she seemed understanding. Called Tara to talk it over. Then came the pivot. An hour later, she came back into the room, face full of guilt and conflict, and said, "Tara thinks it's unfair to cancel just because you're sick. She says you're a grown man, you can take care of yourself." I was literally drenched in sweat and shivering under 3 blankets. And somehow her best friend decided my flu was emotional manipulation. I didn't have the energy to argue. "Do whatever you want," I told her, and rolled over. Next morning, she was gone. And because the universe has a sense of humor, she took the good thermometer with her. Also left me with exactly 1 roll of toilet paper, which felt less like coincidence and more like a petty little exclamation mark. Luckily, Carlos came through. Everyone should have a Carlos. Dude didn't ask questions, just showed up with soup, Gatorade, and good energy. He took Rocket out for a walk while I fought off death and dehydration. Total MVP. Kevin, my guildmate, also had my back. When I messaged to say couldn't make raid night because I was mid-play, he didn't miss a beat. Organized what he called a sickbed spectacular. 5 guys from our guild took turns streaming different games on Discord, just to keep me entertained while I drifted in and out of fevered consciousness. One dude even speedrun Dark Souls while narrating it like a bedtime story. Never met any of them in real life. Different cities, different time zones, but they showed up. Funny how people you've never shared a meal with will drop everything to lift you up, while the person you live with walks out the door with the cold medicine. That's brotherhood right there. Carlos didn't need to say anything about Elena bailing. One look at his face said everything, this tight-lipped kind of disappointment that hits harder than words. He just passed me a controller and let me beat him in Smash. Even though I was playing like a half-conscious raccoon on Nickel, he tanked every match just so I could feel like I wasn't completely losing that day. That's real friendship, letting someone win when the world's already handing them LS. Marcus came by the next day with the concoction he claimed would vaporize the flu. It tasted like melted pennies blended with regret, but I chugged it anyway. He also brought over this menthol recovery balm. His MMA coach swore by stuff. Smelled like a pine forest, and an apothecary had a head-on collision. I appreciated it more than I let on. Elena came home Sunday evening, and the second she saw I was upright and breathing, it was like the whole weekend never happened. No, how are you feeling? No, sorry you were on death's doorstep while I was wine hopping. Just 2 straight hours of photo reels and stories about how Tara got flirted with by the vineyard owner's son. Nothing quite like hearing about grape-based flirtations while your body's still recalibrating from near organ failure. 2 days later, the chill started setting in. Not in the air, but in the way Elena moved. Cold texts, one-word answers, the kind of silence that isn't angry, just absent. I figured she was still bitter about the flu weekend, so I gave her space. Tried not to poke the bear. Then Friday came. I walked in after work, and she was already sitting at the kitchen table. Posture perfect, like she'd been practicing. We need to talk. She launched into this carefully rehearsed speech. Said she'd been doing a lot of reflecting, that she'd identified some red flags. Said I was controlling because I'd asked her to delay the wine trip, that I was isolating her from friends because I pointed out that Tara practically lived in our relationship rent-free. She used phrases I'd never once heard her say before: emotional labor, toxic masculinity, codependency. All the greatest hits from Tara's Instagram stories. It was like she'd swallowed a pop psychology thread and spit it out, word for word. When I called it out, said she was parroting Tara, she doubled down. These are my feelings, she snapped. Like that made it sacred. Like parroting someone else's language turned it into personal truth. Then came the nuke. She said she needed space to reevaluate and asked me to move out from the apartment we both paid for. Like I was the guest. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do. You want space? I said. Go stay with Tara. Cue the tears. Cue the accusations. Apparently, my reaction was just more proof that I was toxic. I didn't even argue. I was too exhausted, too fed up, too done. I packed a bag and crashed at Carlos's that night, trying to wrap my head around how 5 years could unravel that fast. Next morning, woke up to a text. She was making the break permanent. Said she'd swing by while I was at work to grab her stuff. That was it. 5 years just deleted with a message. Like I was a guy she matched with on Hinge and decided wasn't worth the second date. I sat in my car for a full 20 minutes outside the office, just staring at that screen. My brain was blank. Not even sad, yet just stunned. Like someone had pulled the plug on the life I thought I was living. The next couple of weeks, hell, I buried myself in work, lived at the gym. Anything to keep from sitting in that apartment surrounded by her echo. Let her take whatever she wanted. I didn't even check. I didn't want pieces of her floating around, reminding me of what was gone. Bobby came over with tools and turned what used to be our cozy reading nook into a battle station. My new gaming setup, cables and LEDs and all. Carlos brought snacks and sat with me through some quiet nights where all I could do was click through menus and try not to remember the sound of her laugh. Carlos showed up with his spare TV, since Elena had taken the living room one like it was some kind of divorce trophy. We ordered wings, cracked open some cold ones, and played Call of Duty till 3 a.m. Just 2 guys trying to respond some normalcy. For a few hours, it almost felt like life hadn't turned into a black and white rerun of what used to be. Marcus did his part in the great apartment rebuild by helping me mount a pull-up bar in the hallway, and hauling over a duffel bag full of free weights. Physical exertion is the best therapy, he said, mid-bicep curl, sweat glistening like he was starring in his own Rocky montage. Within a week, the living room had morphed into this mutant hybrid of a gamer cave and a training dojo. Exactly the kind of space Elena used to side-eye like it gave her hives. The PC setup sat proudly next to a mismatched set of dumbbells, a yoga mat ironically hers, and a heavy bag that Marcus bolted into the ceiling without even asking if I wanted it. Classic Marcus. No debate, just action. Late nights were still rough, though. Kevin and the guild came through big. We started a brand new campaign in Ash and Veil, fresh characters, highest difficulty, like digital therapy with fireballs and strategy. One night, they surprised me by gifting my character a legendary sword that usually takes months of obsessive grinding to get. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. Not because of the sword, because these strangers from across the globe had done more to show me I mattered than the person I'd lived with. Breakups are weird like that. They don't just take a person away, they mess with your entire rhythm. I still made coffee for 2 out of habit. Still instinctively checked for her favorite cereal at the grocery store. I even caught myself laughing at a meme and almost sending it to her, before remembering she wasn't my person anymore, just someone who used to be. Then the text started. Just checking in. Then have you seen my yoga mat? Then, I miss Rocket. The dog stayed with me because I was the one who fed him, walked him, actually paid attention to him. I kept replies brief. Fine, no yoga mat here. Rocket's good. But they kept coming photos from old trips, inside jokes, half-baked nostalgia. I left them on read. Then came the call. 3 weeks post-breakup. She said maybe she'd reacted too fast. Said she missed us and wanted to talk about trying again. I asked her straight up, have you talked to Tara about this? Long pause. This isn't about Tara, she said. And there it was. The answer. I'm good, thanks, I said, and hung up. Blocked her number right after. Found out later from a mutual friend that Tara had temporarily moved to Boston for a 6-week project. Suddenly, the timeline made sense. Elena's attempt at a reunion aligned perfectly with her main influence skipping town. I wasn't even mad, just tired. Tired of running second place to someone who treated our relationship like a social chessboard. Tired of wondering if I was broken, when deep down, I knew I wasn't. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is just walk away from the circus and let the clowns fight each other. Then, out of nowhere, bam, a Facebook message. From Tara, of all people. Hey, she wrote. I know we've had our differences, but I wanted to check how you're doing. Elena told me you guys talked, and I think she handled everything really badly. You deserved better than that. I nearly spit out my coffee. The woman who'd basically spent years trying to speedrun the destruction of my relationship was now sliding into my DMs like a concerned ex-nemesis. It kept going. I've always thought you were a stand-up guy. Actually, Elena never appreciated what she had with you. Then the kicker. Maybe we could grab coffee sometime. I've always felt like we never really got to know each other properly. And just like that, it clicked. Tara hadn't wanted Elena single because she cared she wanted her single, so she could have full attention, unchallenged influence. But now that Elena was probably moping and missing me, suddenly, Tara was losing her center stage spotlight. So her next move? Try and claim me. Twist the knife a little deeper. Stay the main character no matter what. The messages from Tara didn't stop. If anything, they escalated, each one a little more flirtatious than the last. She even sent a casual-looking selfie that just happened to feature a deep neckline and perfectly done makeup, paired with a breezy, hey, just saying hi was so obvious, so over the top. I almost felt secondhand embarrassment for her. I screenshotted the entire thread and sent it to Bobby and Carlos with the caption, "The audacity of this woman knows no bounds." Carlos responded with that Michael Jackson popcorn gif, the universal symbol for drama appreciation. Bobby just wrote back, "Time to go scorched earth." Later that night, while we were raiding in Ashen Vale, I showed the screenshots to Kevin. He went full tactical. This is like that boss fight where the enemy suddenly switches sides after taking too much damage, he said, mid-battle. Classic bait maneuver. She's hoping you'll defect just to screw with Elena. The whole guild chimed in, throwing out ridiculous revenge ideas like we were plotting an actual heist. Some were wild. One guy suggested mailing her a glitter bomb with a GPS tracker, but a few had real potential. I even brought the messages to Diane during lunch. She scrolled through them with a practiced eye, then set her fork down. "She's trying to flip you as an asset," she said, dead serious. Like this was part of an intel debriefing. Classic psychological ops. Undermine the original target. Reposition herself as ally. Manipulation 101. Then she pulled out a napkin and started diagramming a literal counterintelligence strategy, complete with possible responses, risk analysis, and an extraction protocol in case things got messy. Pretty sure she was having the time of her life. After all that, with my crew fully briefed and way more invested than they probably should have been, I decided, why not have a little fun with it? I messaged Tara back, "You're right, we should talk. There's this new cafe downtown, supposed to be great." We picked a time. I showed up 10 minutes early, picked a table with the perfect view of the entrance, and waited. When she walked in, she looked like she was dressed for a date, not coffee. Hair done, flawless, makeup tight top. It was a full production. She smiled when she saw me, clearly expecting something completely different. As she approached the table, I stood up. So did Carlos, then Bobby, and then Jen, Elena, and Tara's mutual friend, who'd apparently had more than enough of Tara's crap herself. Tara froze mid-step. Her smile faltered. "What is this?" she asked, trying to sound calm but already losing grip. I smiled back, calm as ever. "I figured, since you're such a fan of inserting yourself into other people's relationships, you might enjoy a group setting." Full circle moment. Carlos was subtly filming on his phone, catching every second. I went on, "These folks had a hard time believing what I told them, that you spent years trying to sabotage my relationship, and the second it ended, you started hitting on me. Thanks for confirming." Tara turned red, first pale, then burning crimson. She stammered something about how I was twisting everything, how this was a setup, how inappropriate we all were. That's when Jen stepped in. "Cut it out, Tara. You did the same thing to me and Tom, remember? You told me he was holding me back, pushed me to dump him, and then tried to hook up with him 2 weeks later. You've got a pattern." Tara grabbed her purse and bolted, practically sprinting out the door. We ordered our coffee and spent the next hour trading Tara horror stories. Turns out, she'd pulled variations of this stunt in multiple friendships, always turning people against their partners, always inserting herself into situations that weren't hers to begin with. Best part, Carlos sent the video to Elena with a single caption, "Thought you should see who you picked over, your boyfriend of 5 years." Jen had her own receipts too. Screenshots of Tara talking trash about Elena behind her back, complaining that she was too clingy, too obsessed with me, too much. It was all there. Jen had been collecting the receipts for months. Why she waited until after the breakup to show them, who knows? Maybe she needed closure too. Why Jen waited so long to share all that about Tara, I'll never understand. But hey, better late than never. That night, after the whole CAF incident had settled, I was playing Call of Duty with Carlos and Bobby when Bobby's phone started blowing up with texts. It was his girlfriend sending screenshots from Tara's Instagram. Apparently, she'd decided it was time for her narrative. Cue the sad music and black and white filters. Her story was full of vague quotes about betrayal, toxic men, and fake friends, all layered over slow piano music and moody selfies with captions like, "Some people never appreciated your light until you stopped shining for them." We were laughing so hard we made it into a drinking game. Only instead of alcohol, we used soda, because hydration is important. Vague quote about betrayal? Take a sip. Sad music with a moody filter? Take another. Long paragraph about how misunderstood she is. Finish your soda. By midnight, we were all buzzing on sugar and carbonation, and had somehow turned it into a proper gaming tournament. We even joked about making a Terra bingo card for future story drops. The next day, I was at the gym with Marcus when something even more unexpected happened. I ran into Terra's ex, the guy she dated before she ever went nuclear. On me and Elena, I recognized him from photos, and he recognized me from mutuals, and we ended up chatting after our workouts, grabbed protein shakes and sat outside for nearly an hour just swapping stories. Turns out, she pulled the same manipulative tricks on him. This guy, Ryan, had been dating Terra for almost 3 years before she gradually let the Elena obsession consume everything. He even showed me old messages where she scheduled their date nights around Elena's schedule, like, just in case she needs me. It was disturbingly familiar. Ryan and I exchanged numbers. Honestly, the dude was cool, chill, good sense of humor. We invited him to the next gaming session, and he joined without hesitation. Turned out he was a beast sniper in Call of Duty. Kevin immediately gave him the nickname Fellow Survivor, which stuck. It's now his Discord handle. That weekend, we went all in on a 48-hour gaming marathon. Kevin, Ryan, the guild, the whole crew. We grinded like maniacs through Ashen Vale to unlock this ultra-rare achievement that only 0.1% of players had. We were exhausted, hyped, barely functioning on caffeine and adrenaline. We even live-streamed the final boss fight on Twitch, and somehow, word spread. By the time we reached the final boss, Azurima, the Infinite, we had over 300 people watching live. Among them, a few of Elena and Terra's mutual friends. The chat exploded when we landed the kill. Emojis, cheers, laughing reactions. It was petty validation, sure, but damn, it felt good. Now, it's been 2 months since the calf showdown. According to Jen, Elena and Terra had a huge falling out, apparently. Some screaming match that ended with Terra storming out and Elena in tears. Not long after, got a long message from Elena. A real apology this time. She admitted she'd been manipulated, said she missed us, said she wished she could undo how she handled everything. But honestly, it was too late. You don't let someone else hold the steering wheel in your relationship for 5 years and then expect to pick up where you left off. I don't even hate her. I just feel sorry for her, for how much of herself she lost trying to please someone who didn't deserve that kind of loyalty. And by the time she saw the truth, she'd already torched the one relationship that actually had her back. The last time I saw her in person was at Target of all places. I was in the electronics aisle, checking out headsets. When she walked into view, she saw me before I could slip away, and approached, eyes already glassy. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice trembling. I looked down at my shopping cart. Frozen pizza, a 6-pack of energy drinks, and a copy of Elden Ring, and just smiled. "This is who I am, Elena," I said. "The guy you thought wasn't ambitious enough. Too immature, full of red flags. And you know what? I'm happier now than I've been in years." Then I walked away, while she stood there, stunned, not knowing what to say. Yeah, boss move, if I do say so myself. As for me, I'm actually thriving. The apartment finally feels like mine. Painted the living room a dark navy that Elena always vetoed. Bought that gaming chair I'd wanted for 2 years. Set up a real home office instead of working from the kitchen table. Turns out, life's a lot lighter when you're not constantly being second-guessed or judged. Rocket, my dog, seems happier too. He's got a new rhythm: morning runs, afternoon naps in his favorite sunspot, and evening cuddle sessions while I game. Just 2 dudes living their best lives. Work even gave me a promotion last month. Apparently, grinding through emotional chaos makes you surprisingly productive. My boss called it a noticeable surge in focus and initiative. I call it freedom. A few weeks after all the drama, my boss actually pulled me aside during a one-on-one and said he'd noticed a real shift in my leadership skills. I wasn't just doing my job, I was stepping up, setting the tone, rallying the team in a way he hadn't seen from me before. Honestly, I hadn't even realized it, but it made sense. I wasn't dragging around emotional baggage anymore. I had clarity, and it showed. Carlos and Bobby were still my ride or die guys through all of it. We'd started this new tradition of weekly poker nights at my place, something I'd always wanted but Elena used to veto, saying it was too noisy and immature. Now, my living room turns into a mini casino every Friday, filled with banter, bluffing, and the occasional overdramatic fold. It's chaotic and loud and perfect. And then, there's Alex. She's 27, a software engineer I met at a developer conference downtown. Brilliant, independent, with a wicked sense of humor and a kind of grounded energy that instantly stood out. We hit it off over coffee and ended up talking for 3 hours. And the craziest part, she didn't flinch when I told her I gamed. She actually thought it was cool. Correction, she is a gamer. Like, competitively ranked in 3 different fighting games kind of gamer. She streams on Twitch twice a week and has a modest but fiercely loyal following. The first time we hung out at my place, what was supposed to be a chill movie night turned into an impromptu Street Fighter tournament that lasted till she beat me 9 out of 10 rounds, all while calmly explaining frame data and combo setups like she was teaching a class. I was in awe. Of course, Kevin and the guild loved her instantly. She joined one of our Ashen Vale raids as a guest, and within half an hour, she'd completely restructured our resource allocation and boosted our efficiency by like 20%. 2 weeks later, she was voted in as an officer. Nobody questioned it. And get this, when she met Diane at a company mixer, they hit it off instantly. Turns out both of them had martial arts backgrounds. Diane does Krav Maga. Alex is trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, they train together twice a week at this MMA gym downtown and occasionally text each other memes about arm bars and tactical takedowns. It's weirdly wholesome. Alex is nothing like Elena in all the best ways. She's direct, communicates clearly, doesn't make me guess what she's thinking. She doesn't play those emotional chess games. Plus, her dry sense of humor catches me off guard constantly. Last week, she obliterated me in Mario Kart and then casually handed me a soda like it was part of the ritual. No trash talk, just pure confidence. It was terrifying and hot. Last weekend, we finally hiked that mountain trail Elena and I always talked about, but never actually made it to. The view from the summit was stunning, but the moment that stuck with me most was when we stopped halfway up, just to lie on a flat rock and watch the clouds. No pressure, no timeline, just peace. We're taking things slow. We've both been burned, and we both need space to be our own people. Oh, and I can't forget this. I finally met Kevin. Yeah, that Kevin, our guild raid leader and my online friend of 7 years. The guy who coached me through breakups, life decisions, and half of my job applications. He flew out to Seattle for a tech conference, and we finally met at this greasy burger place downtown. It was surreal, seeing someone you've known for years, talked to almost daily, but never actually seen in person. He was a bit shorter than I imagined, but personality-wise, spot on. The same quick wit, encyclopedic gaming knowledge, and zero tolerance for BS. That weekend, we had a full-blown party at my apartment. Kevin, Alex, Carlos, Bobby, Marcus, Diane, a whole ragtag crew of chaos. We played fighting games, talked trash, shared food, and laughed until our voices were hoarse. At one point, I looked around and just paused. This group of people, so random and different, had become my inner circle, my tribe, and it hit me, losing Elena had somehow opened the door to something better than I ever expected. That whole experience, it taught me something I'll never forget. Trust your gut. When someone shows you who they are, even in the small moments, believe them. And never, ever date someone who lets their toxic best friend run your relationship. Life's too short for outsourced thinking. Next week, Kevin's flying in again. We're planning a massive LAN party at Marcus Place. Old school style. Pizza, soda, yelling over each other, the works. And yeah, Alex and I are moving in together next month. We found a place with an extra bedroom. We're turning into a dual gaming setup. 2 desks, 2 rigs, facing each other. Life doesn't just go on sometimes. It levels up in ways you never saw coming.